Hey everyone, this is Prachi, and today we will talk about books that I read in June. So this month I completed 3 books and I completed Murakami's 1Q84, the trilogy. If you would like to know what I'm currently reading, make sure you follow me on Goodreads and we can share recommendations. The first book that I completed was Mistakes Were Made But Not By Me. If you've watched my last video, you will see this book in my 24 books before 24 video. If you haven't, check it out. This book is about cognitive dissonance and how deep-rooted it is in us humans. Cognitive dissonance is a state of tension that occurs when a person holds two cognitions, like ideas, opinions, attitudes, beliefs, that are psychologically inconsistent from each other. It is written by 2 social psychologists, Carol Travis and Elliot Aronson. In this book, they talk about the role that cognitive dissonance plays in every aspect of our life, in our professional life, in our relationships, even when we are electing our political leaders. This book draws examples from American culture and American lives, and it tells that how Americans are controlled by cognitive dissonance that leads to self-justification. I really enjoyed reading this book. However, this book was too much inclined towards the American culture. Instead of it being general, it was based on just one country. Even then, there's so much to learn from it about yourself and human nature in general. Even though dissonance is deeply rooted in our human nature, this book also teaches you how to mindfully release yourself from the grasp of dissonance and self-justification. So I will give this book a 3 on 5. The next book is Beautiful Broken Things by Sarah Bernard. This book is set in Brighton. It is a story that starts with 2 16-year-old girls, Caddy and Rosie, who are best friends even though they're not in the same school. One day, a new girl, Susan, comes in their lives by joining Rosie's school and becomes really good friends with Rosie. This makes Caddy, who's a shy girl, feel jealous about their friendship. And soon, even Caddy becomes fond of Susan, and all 3 of them become best friends. The story later reveals Susan's disturbing past of domestic physical violence, which makes Caddy and Susan become even closer, even though their friendship is turning out to be dangerous for both of them and for people around them. It is a very refreshing story about friendship, and I would like to give this book a 3 on 5. The third book that I read was A Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf. A Room of One's Own is an essay based on 2 lectures given by Woolf at the University of Cambridge. Woolf has been asked to talk on the topic of women and fiction. The message that she gives based on her research on the topic, in simple words, is for a woman to write books, she must have a room of one's own and money to survive. She talks about many fascinating things in the book, one of which is she wonders what would have happened if Shakespeare had a sister with the same level of genius. She asks, would she have been given the same opportunity, the same support that Shakespeare got, and would she be famous like Shakespeare? I extremely enjoyed reading this book. I'm so grateful I got to read this book, and I feel this is one of the best books that I've read, and for that I will give this 5 stars. I would like to read something from the book which made me think a lot and it had an impact on me, and I hope it does the same to you. So it goes like, but it is obvious that the values of women differ very often from the values which have been made by the other sex. Naturally, this is so. Yet it is the masculine values that prevail. Speaking crudely, football and sport are important. The worship of fashion, the buying of clothes, trivial. And these values are inevitably transferred from life to fiction. This is an important book, the critic assumes, because it deals with war. This is an insignificant book because it deals with the feelings of women in a drawing room. Now, let's talk about 1Q84. 4. If you haven't read this book and are planning to read it soon, I suggest you skip this part. But if you have read it or you don't want to read it, keep watching. Book 1 starts with 2 separate storylines of 2 main characters, Tengo and Aomame. Aomame is a gym instructor and Tengo is a math prodigy who also likes to write fiction. The story is about a parallel world parallel to 1984, which Aomame calls 1Q84 after she notices slight changes in the world around her. Her suspicion is confirmed when she looks up at the sky and realizes there are 2 moons up there. Tengo, on the other hand, is scanning submissions for the literary prize and stumbles upon a story that he thinks is great. The editor under whom Tengo works thinks that even though the story is great, it's not well written, so he asks Tengo to ghostwrite it and resubmit it in time for the literary prize, in hope for earning some money and fame and doing something great, even though it's unethical. The original writer of the story is a 17-year-old girl, Fuka Eri, and she too gets on board, and eventually they do publish it and she wins the prize. What they don't realize is that the story that's written in the book, what they thought to be a fragment of a 17-year-old girl's imagination, is in fact absolutely true. The world that she describes in her story is the world that they're experiencing around and not the real world that they're originally from. I won't talk about the story any further. It would take a lot of time for me to describe the 3-book story. However, I do have some points to say, and before I say them, I would like to tell everyone that this is my personal opinion based on my personal experience. The first is, the story could have been half the size of what it originally is. The trilogy could have been written down in just 1 book or maybe 1.5 book. The second is, the story starts off great. It's interesting, it's intriguing, the anticipation is thrilling, but later it just falls off. Third, so this is my first Murakami book and I don't know how he writes, but I feel that in this book there were so many instances and characters and backgrounds that were explained in so much detail that was not really required. I understand that there are some things that are supposed to be written in great detail and I enjoy reading that. It gives you a visual experience. You start to imagine and you imagine exactly what the character is seeing. But then again, there were so many things that did not require that much detail because it did not have any role in the storyline. The fourth and the last point is, I just did not like this book. I really wanted to. The story seemed great initially. As I went on and after I finished it, I just did not like it. I was tremendously disappointed. The first book I gave a 3-star, the second a 2, and the third one a 1-star. So on average, the trilogy gets a 2-star from me. So these were all the books that I read in June, and I hope you enjoyed watching this. If you have any comments on the books that I mentioned, or if you would like to recommend me some books that you think I will like based on the books that I shared with you today, please mention them in the comment section. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!